When darkness swallowed the medieval countryside, people barred their doors, shuttered their windows, and whispered prayers to keep the noctis demonia away. The night demons said to prowl, unseen. These spirits, born from sin and shadow, were blamed for sudden deaths, missing livestock, and nightmares that left villagers gasping for breath. Many claimed the demons could take human form, a beggar, a shadow, or even a loved one at the door after dusk. To keep them out, families placed iron scissors above cradles, hung garlic near doors, and drew crosses on windows with holy ash. Priests warned never to stare too long into the dark fields, for that was where the eyes of Malthus glowed, a sign that a demon was near. Old records from 13th century France describe whole villages abandoning their homes after a night curse fell, where livestock were found, bloodless, and women heard whispering voices through the walls. Whether real or imagined, those fears shaped the very rhythm of medieval nights, when silence itself felt alive. To the medieval peasant, nightfall was not peaceful. It was a warning. As the last light faded, it marked the moment when spirits of the damned were free to walk the earth. Church bells at Vespers were the final signal for safety. Beyond that, only fools or sinners roamed outdoors. Superstition taught that the devil's minions thrived in darkness, hunting souls who neglected their evening prayers. Candles were blessed before being lit, and families huddled close, murmuring psalms to drive away unseen eyes watching through cracks in the wall. Travelers told tales of glowing figures on the roads, whispering in forgotten tongues, spirits of the unburied dead. Every flicker of wind, every creak in the wooden beams was a reminder that evil was near. Even the moon was mistrusted, its light said to reveal spirits who hid from God. So peasants clung to ritual, marking crosses on door frames, sprinkling salt in corners, and sleeping with iron tools nearby. In their world, night was not just the absence of light, it was the presence of something darker waiting in silence.
Midnight, known as the witching hour, was the most feared time of night.
Between the toll of 12 and the first rooster's cry, the veil between the living and the dead was said to thin. Spirits, demons, and witches all roamed freely, and even the bravest knights refused to travel then. Medieval chronicles tell of monks who saw shadowy figures pacing the abbey halls, their footsteps echoing, though none could be seen. In village folklore, black dogs with red eyes guarded crossroads, while witches met in the forest to summon spirits that granted power, at the cost of their souls, to survive the witching hour. Villagers prayed the Paternoster 3 times and placed a lit candle near holy relics. Some slept with rosaries tied around their wrists. Others burned rosemary and rue to purify the air. Those who ignored these protections risked waking to find scratches on their doors, hoofprints in the ashes, or worse, a whisper in the dark saying their name. In medieval Europe, the evil eye was no simple superstition. It was a terror that crossed borders and centuries. People believed a single envious glance could bring illness, death, or misfortune to an entire household. Mothers hid newborns from strangers, fearing their beauty might attract the gaze of a jealous spirit. Blacksmiths forged small iron amulets shaped like suns or eyes to reflect the curse away. Priests blessed water, with whispered Latin prayers, used to sprinkle over thresholds and barns. The most feared were women with unlucky eyes, those born under eclipses or storms. If crops failed, or a cow died mysteriously, the villagers' eyes turned toward them.
Some were banished.
Others burned. Even kings were not immune. Chroniclers claim that Edward the Confessor wore a sapphire ring to repel the curse of envy, while peasants hung blue glass charms over their doors. It was a world where suspicion was survival, and the simple act of looking could doom an entire family. Before sleeping, medieval families performed nightly rituals, not for comfort, but for protection. Night was the devil's realm, and dreams were his doorway. To block demons from entering the sleeping mind, people recited specific psalms, such as Psalm 91, believed to drive away unclean spirits. Charcoal crosses were drawn on bedposts. Iron keys were placed under pillows to ward off nocturnal demons. Even the position of sleep mattered. Facing east meant one slept under God's gaze. While facing west risked shadow visitations, some households burned dried herbs like sage and juniper to cleanse the air. Others left bowls of salt by the bed, a barrier no spirit could cross. Monks wrote charms on parchment, folded, sealed with wax, and worn around the neck as protection through the night. For the medieval mind, sleep was not rest, it was surrender. And to wake unharmed was not luck, but proof that faith had prevailed against the unseen horrors waiting just beyond the candlelight. In the dark age of faith and fear, exorcisms were not whispered legends. They were acts of desperate survival. When strange voices echoed from a child's mouth, or when someone's eyes turned black in prayer, priests were summoned with holy water, relics, and courage forged in scripture. These rituals could last for days. Bells were rung to drive away the devil's influence. Candles blessed by bishops burned through the night, and the ritual Ramana was chanted until throats bled. Some demons, it was said, laughed at the prayers, mocking the priests in tongues no mortal understood. In monasteries from Germany to Italy, secret manuals described forbidden rites, combining ancient pagan words with Christian invocations. One monk from Rouen claimed he could see the expelled demons as black smoke crawling up the walls before vanishing. But exorcism came at a price. Those who performed it were believed to attract the devil's wrath, and many priests died soon after successful cleansings. The church later sealed many of these records, calling them too dangerous to study. Yet the echoes of those exorcisms still linger in chants, in candlelight, and in the fear that something unseen still waits in silence. When the deep toll of a church bell echoed through the medieval countryside, it was not just a call to prayer. It was a weapon against evil. People believed that demons, witches, and restless souls fled from the sacred vibration of consecrated bronze. Each bell was baptized with holy water and given a saint's name. When thunder roared or sickness spread, bells were rung to chase the air demons that carried plague and sin. At night, their sound warned spirits to stay away from holy ground. Villagers knelt when they heard it, tracing the sign of the cross, whispering, "The sound of God, the fall of devils." Some legends claim that the devil himself despised the ringing, for it reminded him of his fall from heaven. During storms, monks climbed bell towers to ring them continuously, even at the risk of lightning strikes, believing it could scatter malevolent forces. In remote villages, small spirit bells hung above doorways, chiming softly with the wind. For medieval souls, that sound meant one thing: safety. When the bells stopped, silence was not peace. It was fear. In medieval folklore, crossroads were never just roads. They were gateways, where two paths met. The veil between the living and the dead was said to thin, and travelers spoke of a dark figure waiting there at midnight, the demon of the crossroads. Peasants claimed he offered power, luck, or forbidden knowledge in exchange for one's soul. To meet him, a person had to stand alone at the crossing under a moonless sky and whisper their desire 3 times. But every gift he gave came twisted. Wishes for love turned to obsession. Wishes for wealth ended in ruin. Because of such tales, crossroads became cursed ground. Suicides and criminals were often buried there, so their spirits would be trapped. Unable to enter heaven or hell, travelers avoided them after sunset, marking themselves with holy symbols or scattering salt before crossing. Chroniclers from England to Bohemia mention men vanishing at these intersections, leaving only burned footprints behind. Whether demon, spirit, or human darkness, the crossroads became a symbol of choice and of the eternal price of temptation. To the medieval mind, a shadow was more than the absence of light. It was a piece of the soul. People believed that if a demon captured your shadow, it could control your spirit or drain your life away slowly until you became a walking hollow. At night, candles cast flickering shapes across stone walls, and villagers swore they moved on their own, twitching, writhing, or stretching toward their owners. Priests warned never to look directly at your shadow by moonlight, for it was then that dark entities tried to slip inside it. Children were kept away from mirrors and wells after dusk, as both were thought to be portals where one's reflection could be stolen. To protect themselves, people drew small crosses inside their door frames and burned animal fat mixed with salt, a ritual said to feed the shadow so it stayed loyal. Travelers' journals speak of companions vanishing, leaving only a strange mark on the ground where their shadow once fell. The belief was simple but terrifying. If your shadow did not follow you at dawn, something else had claimed it during the night. Nightmares were not just dreams in the Middle Ages, they were attacks. People believed that invisible spirits known as Mara or incubi sat upon the sleeper's chest, suffocating them, feeding on fear. The paralyzing weight, the struggle to breathe, and the sense of a presence watching, all were seen as proof of demonic intrusion. Scholars in monasteries wrote of victims who screamed in their sleep, clawing at their throats, waking with bruises or scratches. To protect against these nightly assaults, villagers hung iron keys by the bed, placed Bibles under pillows, or sprinkled holy salt beneath the mattress. Women were especially warned of the incubus, a male demon said to seduce them in their sleep, leaving them weak and pale by morning. Men feared the succubus, who drained their strength and whispered sinful thoughts into their dreams. The church taught that only faith could repel such creatures. Before sleep, believers recited, "Deliver us from the terror of the night."
But even then,
Many feared that once darkness fell, no prayer could stop the whisper that came from the shadow beside the bed. In the medieval world, darkness was not merely inconvenient, it was dangerous. People believed that when the last candle went out, evil spirits crept in through the blackness. A single flame, blessed by a priest, or lit with sacred words, was thought to protect a household through the night. Every home kept candles made from pure beeswax, a material believed to carry divine purity. Before sleeping, one candle always remained burning near icons or crosses. To extinguish it before dawn was an open invitation to demons who lurked unseen. Monks warned that shadows moved freely in the absence of light and could possess a sleeping soul. Many claimed that ghosts were drawn to smoke or darkness, feeding on the fear it created. Some even said that when a candle flickered for no reason, an unseen presence was near, whispering from another realm. In times of plague, families placed candles in every window, hoping their glow would ward off the air of death. The belief was simple, yet powerful. Light meant life, and as long as one candle burned, no spirit could claim the nights. Long before medicine or science, medieval people believed that death always sent a messenger first, a ghostly visitor seen or heard days before a soul departed. Known as death's heralds, these apparitions often appeared in dreams or by the bedside of the dying. A pale woman in white, a faceless monk, or a black hound with glowing eyes, all were omens that death had chosen its next victim. Chroniclers from Wales and Ireland wrote of wailing spirits who circled homes like cold wind before illness struck. If one heard their cry, prayer and confession became the only defense. Families kept vigil with candles, chanting psalms through the night, believing the ghost could be turned away by faith. Those who ignored the sign often died suddenly, taken in sleep, as the old records said. Even nobles feared these visitations. It is said that King Philip IV of France saw a spectral knight 3 nights before his death, standing silent at his door. Whether warning or curse, the message was always the same. The other world was waiting, though forbidden by the church. Some medieval monks secretly practiced protective magic, ancient prayers, and coded incantations mixed with Christian symbols. Their purpose was not power, but survival, for in a world plagued by pestilence, war, and unseen evil, even the holy sought hidden strength. In dim candlelight, they inscribed sigils in the margins of holy books, patterns of crosses and circles, meant to trap wandering spirits. Some burned herbs,
like rosemary and myrrh, to cleanse the air of sin. Others whispered the Oratio Sancti,
an exorcistic prayer said to shield the soul during sleep. When storms raged, monks drew chalk symbols on walls, believing they could divert demons that traveled with thunder. One forbidding text: The Book of Nine Names was rumored to contain divine words so powerful that uttering them could turn away even the devil himself. Though condemned as superstition, these holy spells blended faith and fear, a reflection of men who lived between two worlds, one divine and one haunted by shadows. To the medieval imagination, moonlight was both beautiful and deadly. People believed it carried enchantment and danger. Too much exposure, they said, could drive a person mad, awaken evil spirits, or turn the living into something monstrous. Travelers refused to sleep under full moons, fearing the moon's gaze, which supposedly drained one's soul through the eyes. Women covered mirrors and windows, for moonlight entering a home could summon restless spirits. Shepherds swore that their flocks grew uneasy beneath it, as if hearing whispers from beyond. The church taught that moonlight could distort holy symbols, twisting shadows into demonic forms. In villagers, the sick were never left outside after dusk, lest the moon marked them for death. Legends spread of cursed men who stared too long at the silver glow and awoke changed pale, cold, and speaking in strange voices. To counter the curse, people carried sprigs of lavender and crossed themselves when the moon rose for a world without electric light. The moon's glow was both a blessing and a warning, a reminder that beauty could also belong to the dark. In medieval times, sleeping alone was more than lonely. It was risky. People believed that solitude in sleep left one's soul unguarded, vulnerable to demons, witches, and the night hag, who preyed on the isolated. Families shared beds not only for warmth, but for spiritual safety. The breath and heartbeat of others were thought to repel evil entities. Monks in monasteries slept in groups, reciting psalms before extinguishing their lamps, believing collective prayer formed a wall against the devil's reach. Those forced to sleep alone often placed relics or iron objects near their beds, a crucifix above the headboard, a knife under the pillow, or a circle of salt around the floor. Folktales told of travelers who spent a night in an empty house and were found lifeless by morning, their faces twisted in terror. Witnesses swore they heard whispering voices or saw impressions on the bedding, as if something unseen had lain beside them. To sleep alone in the Middle Ages was not a choice of peace, but a test of courage. For, in the dark hours, one could never be sure who or what shared the room. In the shadows of medieval Europe, there were whispers of Fera, spirits born from the fear of witches, and drawn to human terror like wolves to blood. These entities were said to be invisible by day, but visible at night as shifting forms half smoke, half shadow, hovering near those who trembled. Villagers claimed that witches could summon them through blood rituals or dark prayers to old gods. Once released, the Fera clung to the living, feeding on their fear until their minds unraveled. Victims would wake screaming, unable to breathe, their rooms filled with a stench of burning herbs and rot. To repel these spirits, people burned salt and sage together, reciting, "Fear is the devil's breath, return it to him." Some carried iron pendants engraved with a crescent moon, a symbol thought to block the witch's power. Inquisitors hunted women accused of controlling the Fera, claiming they could command entire villages to madness. But even when the accused burned, the whispers continued in the night, proof, perhaps, that the true evil was never human at all. Dreams were sacred in the medieval mind, gateways to heaven, but also traps of hell. Many believed that while the body slept, the soul wandered freely, vulnerable to the demons who prowled the unseen world. These spirits, called somniorum demonia, entered through unguarded thoughts. They appeared as familiar faces, a lost parent, a lover, a saint, but twisted into something sinister. Monks recorded tales of dreamers who awoke with bruises, or spoke in voices not their own. The church taught that lustful or violent dreams were the devil's whispers, testing the faithful. Some priests recommended fasting and confession to cleanse the sleeping soul. Others slept sitting upright, fearing that lying flat made it easier for demons to sit upon the chest.
A rare prayer. Custodiani meum dormintem, guard my soul as I sleep, was whispered across Europe.
But not all who used it woke unharmed. Chroniclers mention monks who stopped dreaming
entirely after reciting it.
as if the demons had simply found a quieter way in. By the 12th century, reports of midnight apparitions terrified Christian Europe. Ghostly monks, burning nights, faceless women. Spirits said to appear only between midnight and 3, the unholy hours that mocked the Holy Trinity. The church declared war on these hauntings. Priests blessed entire villages, walking with incense through fog-covered streets, chanting Vade Retro. Satana bells were rung thrice at midnight to drive back the spirits. Yet, the sightings grew bolder. Chroniclers wrote of one French monastery where monks awoke nightly to the sound of chains dragging across the chapel floor.
When they opened the doors, they saw nothing except candlelight bending, as if someone unseen moved past.
The church eventually created night patrols of friars who carried holy relics through graveyards and crossroads. But some never returned. Those who did spoke of eyes glowing in the mist and whispers that called their names. By dawn, they would kneel in silence, trembling. The war between light and darkness was not fought on battlefields. It was fought in the hours when faith met fear, and the dead refused to rest. If you wander through ancient villages of Europe, you may still see faint crosses carved into wooden doors. Symbols not of decoration, but defense. In the Middle Ages, people believed evil spirits could not cross holy marks, and doors were the first line of protection against them. Each cross was carved during daylight, usually after Mass, and blessed with drops of holy water. Families renewed the carvings each year on Easter or All Hallows' Eve. It was said that when demons came prowling at night, the carved cross glowed faintly, unseen by human eyes, but feared by all evil things. Carpenters, too, added hidden crosses inside doorframes, believing the spirits would become trapped within the wood, unable to enter. Some villagers went further, nailing small bones of saints or relics behind their doors as spiritual locks. Legends tell of a nobleman who forgot to renew his cross and woke to find claw marks scorched into his door. After that, no house in the village dared neglect the ritual again, for in the medieval night, faith was more than belief. It was a fortress. Before vampires became legend, medieval Europe already feared creatures that fed on human life. Shadow beasts called strigi or naxir. These entities were said to crawl from graves or drift as mist, entering homes to drain warmth, breath, or blood. Victims of their attacks grew pale and weak, often dying within days. Their corpses were buried with stones in their mouths or nails through their hearts to prevent them from rising again. In some regions, villagers burned the left shoe of the deceased, believing it confused the spirit and kept it from returning. Church records mention exhumations where bodies appeared fresh, their lips stained red, taken as proof that the strigi had fed on the living. Monks performed midnight masses over graves, chanting to seal the soil against the undead. The people lived in constant fear that even loved ones could turn after death. To sleep was to risk awakening to the soft sound of breathing in the dark. Not your own, but something that had come back hungry. The night hag was one of the most feared spirits of the Middle Ages, a creature that sat upon the chests of sleepers, crushing their breath and whispering nightmares into their minds. Scholars today call it sleep paralysis, but to medieval people, it was far more sinister. According to Old Norse and English folklore, the hag was a spirit of a woman who had died in hatred or envy. Denied rest, she wandered the earth at night, slipping through cracks and keyholes to torment the living. Victims awoke, unable to move, their eyes wide as the hag's shadow loomed over them, heavy, cold, and suffocating. Villagers hung iron horseshoes over doors and sprinkled ashes near beds to detect her footprints. In Ireland, people left a bowl of milk on the windowsill, hoping to appease her hunger before she entered. Priests called her Succuba Nocturna, the dark mother of fear, and believed she was one of Lucifer's daughters. Those who felt her weight upon their chest prayed, "Christ light, drive back her night." Yet many never spoke of it again, for naming the hag was said to summon her back. In the medieval mind, sleep paralysis was no medical event. It was a nightly battle for the soul. Victims described feeling frozen, unable to move or speak, while a dark figure pressed upon them. The church taught that such paralysis was the work of incubi or succubi. Demons that preyed on the sleeping men accused the succubus of draining their vitality through sinful dreams, leaving them weak and shamed. Women, on the other hand, were said to be attacked by the incubus, a demon of desire that sought to corrupt the pure. Doctors of the time prescribed prayer, fasting, and the burning of juniper to cleanse the room. Some sufferers wore iron crosses around their necks or kept blessed candles burning till dawn. If the attacks continued, exorcism was the final option. But despite all efforts, the experience was common enough that it was feared more than disease itself. Chroniclers called it the devil's embrace, and to those who endured it, it truly felt as if hell itself had reached through the dark to take hold of them. When night brought silence and fear, medieval folk turned to the earth for protection.
Certain herbs, blessed by priests and gathered under moonlight, were said to repel demons.
Ghosts and sickness carried by dark spirits, the most sacred was rue, known as the herb of grace. Hung above doors or burned in the hearth, it was believed to blind evil eyes. Sage purified rooms of restless souls, while rosemary was tied in garlands around the necks of children to guard them as they slept. Midwives carried wormwood to protect newborns from the Mara, the spirit of suffocating nightmares. Travelers burned juniper berries before setting out at dawn so that no shadow would follow them. Churches even blended herbs into holy water, creating potions to sprinkle on walls and thresholds. The fragrance of these plants, sharp, earthy, eternal, became the scent of hope in a world ruled by fear. When the wind howled through stone cottages and unseen things moved outside, the people clung to their herbs and prayers, believing that as long as they smelled the earth's strength, darkness could not claim their souls. In the stillness of medieval nights, graveyards glowed with ghostly lights, blue, white, or green, dancing low above the ground. People called them corpse candles, willow, the wisps, or ghost fires. Some said they were souls trapped between worlds. Others believed they were the lanterns of spirits seeking the newly dead. Travelers often mistook these lights for safe pads or village lanterns, following them only to become lost in marshes and bogs. Villagers swore that if a candle moved toward a home, it meant death would soon visit that household. Priests explained the lights as signs of purgatory souls begging for prayers to help them reach heaven. To calm them, families left offerings of bread or milk at the cemetery gate. Others recited psalms to guide the lost lights back to peace. But not all believed they were benign. Some said demons used the ghost flames to lure sinners away from holy ground. And when the lights vanished suddenly, it was taken as a warning. A soul had just been claimed. Even today, those wandering ancient burial fields at night speak of flickering lights that seem to breathe, as if the dead still remember. In the medieval age, holy water was more than a symbol. It was a shield. Every church kept large basins of it, blessed with Latin prayers, salt, and sometimes ashes from sacred candles.
The faithful dipped their fingers before entering, tracing the cross to armor their souls.
But its greatest use came at night.
When sickness spread or spirits stirred, families sprinkled holy water on walls,
Beds and doorways, whispering, "Let no unclean thing cross this mark." Soldiers carried small vials of it into battle,
believing it could turn aside demonic blades.
Exorcists drenched possessed rooms with it, each droplet believed to burn devils like acid. Even livestock were blessed with it during plagues, and crops sprinkled to drive away evil winds. Legends tell of a priest in Prague who stopped a haunting by tracing a wet cross on the floor. When dawn came, claw marks had burned into the wood where he stood. To the medieval soul, faith was not just prayer, it was tangible. And in every droplet of holy water shimmered the fragile hope that light could still stand against the dark. In the Middle Ages, an oath was not just a promise. It was a sacred bond sealed before God in the unseen world.
To break one was to invite spirits of vengeance, known as perjury, the oath spirits.
They were said to rise from the shadows, invisible but relentless, haunting liars until their final breath. According to legend, those who betrayed vows felt cold breath at their necks, heard whispers in their sleep, or saw faces forming in mirrors. Crops withered, livestock sickened, and families fell into ruin, all signs of the spirit's wrath. Knights swore by the cross, peasants by relics, merchants by the saints, and if they lied, the church refused burial in consecrated ground. Exorcists described perjury as spirits of truth, twisted into tormentors who fed on broken words. Some desperate sinners sought forgiveness by carving crosses into their own doors or fasting for 40 days. But once summoned, the oath spirits rarely left. In medieval thought, every lie had a life of its own, and some truths demanded revenge. When darkness fell upon the medieval countryside, the forests came alive with sounds that froze even the bravest hearts, screams without mouths,
Laughter without joy. Footsteps that stopped when listened for.
Peasants believed these were the cries of unholy wanderers, souls denied rest, forever circling the earth. Hunters spoke of hearing chanting deep among the trees, as if monks prayed in reverse Latin. Others claimed to see glowing eyes staring between branches, vanishing when crossed with a crucifix. The church warned travelers to avoid the woods after sunset, calling them the devil's cloisters. Demons, they said, preferred the wild places unblessed and forgotten by man. When storms passed through, villagers stayed indoors, believing the wind itself carried screaming souls. To protect their homes, people burned cedar and oak in their hearths, sealing windows with salt. They believed that if one listened too closely to the woods, the spirits would learn their name and call it back to them before dawn. Even today, old forests whisper, and some say if you stand still long enough, you'll hear the same medieval chorus, the echo of the damned, still wandering in the dark. In medieval superstition, the crow of a rooster was not merely the herald of dawn. It was the sound of victory over darkness. People believed that every demon, witch, and wandering spirit fled at the first cry of the rooster, for its voice declared that night's reign was over. Church texts called it the trumpet of the Lord. Roosters were often kept beside chapels and monasteries to guard holy ground. It was said that Christ's resurrection was marked by a rooster's crow, forever binding the bird's voice to light. In villages, people refused to slaughter white roosters, believing them sacred protectors.
When the cock crowed thrice before dawn, it was a sign that angels had driven the shadows away.
If the rooster remained silent, however, the night was not yet safe. Legends tell of demons silencing roosters before attacks, until priests blessed the birds with holy water to restore their cry. To the medieval soul, that shrill sound at dawn was more than nature's rhythm. It was a divine alarm that the darkness had lost its hold.
Among lesser-known medieval legends was the candle spirit, a tiny flame believed to guard homes from evil, but only if treated with reverence.
People said each candle had a spirit within, born from divine fire. To snuff it carelessly was to offend the light itself. If angered, the spirit would twist the flame into strange shapes, or cause it to sputter violently as a warning. Some claimed that after blowing out a candle too quickly, they saw glowing eyes in the smoke, watching them until dawn. Candles were never left burning before. Open windows for the spirit might wander out and never return, leaving the house exposed to demons. On holy nights, families whispered blessings before lighting them. Light born of heaven, guard this home from hell! When someone died, a candle burned beside the body so the soul would not travel alone. If the flame flickered out before dawn, it was said the spirit had been taken by darker hands. For medieval people, light was not just fire. It was faith made visible. And every candle carried a soul of its own. Hidden deep within the pages of monastic manuscripts was a forbidden verse, the midnight prayer against evil. Said to have been revealed to a hermit by an angel, it was a chant of protection so strong it could banish spirits with a single recitation. Only those pure of heart were allowed to speak it, and only at midnight, the hour when darkness ruled and heaven's gate was near. Monks described gathering in candlelight, kneeling as the bell tolled 12. The words were whispered, never spoken aloud, for the prayer's power was in its secrecy. Those who dared misuse it faced terrible fates. A legend from Saxony tells of a priest who spoke the prayer for pride, and his voice was never heard again. His church bell rang on its own that night, though no wind blew.
The final line of the prayer was always written in red ink. May no spirit of shadow linger where this light is named.
And so, through centuries of fear and faith, this secret prayer became a weapon of the pure, a whisper in the dark that even demons feared to hear.